Faith is the anchor of the soul when everything around us feels like it is shifting, unpredictable, and unstable. In 2025, we live in a world where uncertainty has become the new normal. Economies are shaken, technology is moving faster than human comprehension, and global events unfold in ways that we cannot predict or control. For many people, this creates anxiety, fear, and paralysis. They do not know what tomorrow may bring, and that sense of uncertainty leaves them feeling vulnerable, overwhelmed, and directionless. But it is in the midst of such uncertainty that faith emerges not as a luxury, but as a necessity, not as a passive belief, but as an active force that provides clarity, confidence, and direction. Faith is not simply about religion or rituals. It is about the deep conviction that there is meaning beyond chaos, order beyond confusion, and purpose beyond the storms of life. When we look at history, we see that every generation has faced moments of great uncertainty, moments when fear could have dominated and crushed the human spirit. Yet it was not fear that built civilizations, advanced societies, or empowered leaders. It was faith. Faith in God, faith in values, faith in vision, faith in the unseen possibilities of tomorrow. The same truth applies in 2025. Fear will cloud your mind, blur your vision, and drown you in doubt, but faith will sharpen your focus and give you a sense of clarity that nothing external can shake. Fear asks, what if everything goes wrong? Faith answers, what if everything goes right? And even if it doesn't, I will find the strength to endure and overcome. Clarity is something the world craves right now. People are searching for clear answers in politics, in finances, in relationships, and in their own personal futures. The media amplifies fear. Social platforms magnify division. The pace of change disorients the mind. It feels like walking through a fog where every step forward is uncertain. Yet clarity is not something we find by analyzing the fog. It is something that comes when we elevate our perspective. Faith provides that elevation. It lifts the human spirit above the fog of uncertainty and allows us to see with spiritual eyes, with a deeper vision that fear cannot offer. Clarity does not mean that all questions are answered or that the path is fully revealed, but it means we know the direction, we know the next step, and we know that even if the path is hidden, the one guiding us has already mapped the way. Imagine a sailor on the open sea in the middle of a storm. The waves are crashing, the winds are howling, and visibility is poor. Fear makes the sailor freeze, lose confidence, and perhaps even abandon hope. But faith allows the sailor to trust in the compass, the stars, or the captain's knowledge. The storm does not disappear, but the clarity of direction is restored. That is what faith does in times like 2025. It does not remove the storms of uncertainty, but it keeps us steady, calm, and aligned with the path we must take. Without faith, people drown in panic. With faith, people rise above the storm. Some people misunderstand faith. They think it means ignoring reality or pretending difficulties do not exist. But true faith does not deny reality, it redefines it. Faith looks at uncertainty not as a threat, but as an invitation to grow, to trust, and to move forward with courage. Faith is not blind optimism. It is the assurance that even in darkness, there is light, and even in setbacks, there is opportunity. Faith provides clarity because it shifts our focus from the uncontrollable to the controllable, from fear of what could go wrong to belief in what we can do right. It frees our minds from the endless cycle of what-if questions that paralyze progress. Every person in 2025 faces their own unique uncertainty. For some, it is the uncertainty of finances in a turbulent economy. For others, it is the uncertainty of health, career, or relationships. For nations, it is the uncertainty of security, unity, and progress. But for all of us, the principle is the same. Fear magnifies the uncertainty, while faith provides clarity through it. Faith says, I do not have to know everything about tomorrow, but I can walk confidently today because I believe my steps have purpose. That kind of faith provides clarity, even in confusion, because it gives a sense of direction, hope, and meaning that circumstances cannot erase. Think about how fear operates. Fear makes problems appear bigger than they are. Fear takes a single setback and convinces you that it is the end of your journey. Fear blinds you to opportunities because you are so focused on what could go wrong that you never see what could go right. Fear whispers that you are not strong enough, not smart enough, not capable enough, and it leaves you standing still while opportunities pass you by. Faith, however, speaks with a different voice. Faith reminds you that strength is not about never being afraid, but about moving forward despite the fear. Faith tells you that clarity does not come from having all the answers, but from trusting the process and taking the next step. Faith assures you that your value, your purpose, and your future are not defined by your fears, but by your beliefs and actions. In times of uncertainty, leaders who rise are not those who have no fear, but those who choose faith over fear. Businesses are not built by people who waited until everything was certain. They were built by people who had faith in their vision and acted with clarity when nothing was guaranteed. Movements that shaped history were not born in certainty, but in uncertainty, fueled by the faith of people who believed in something greater than themselves. This truth has not changed in 2025. Whether you are leading a family, a business, a community, or simply leading yourself, your clarity and uncertainty will not come from external guarantees, but from internal faith. Some people in 2025 are paralyzed because they are waiting for certainty before they act. They say, I will take this step when I am sure. I will pursue my dream when the economy is stable. I will make a change when the conditions are perfect. But the conditions are never perfect, and certainty never comes. Life is not about waiting for certainty. It is about acting with faith in uncertainty. Faith brings clarity not by removing risk, but by giving you the courage to act in spite of risk. If you wait for certainty, you will wait forever. If you act in faith, you create momentum, and momentum itself creates new opportunities and new clarity. When fear controls you, your vision narrows. You only see problems, dangers, and threats. But when faith guides you, your vision expands. You see possibilities, solutions, and opportunities that were invisible before. That expanded vision is clarity. It is not that the challenges disappear, but that your perspective changes. You begin to realize that uncertainty is not the enemy, but the environment in which faith shines the brightest. In fact, without uncertainty, faith would not even be necessary. Faith is only activated when the outcome is unclear, when the road ahead is foggy, when the future is unknown. That is why times like 2025, though filled with uncertainty, are actually opportunities for people of faith to rise and shine, to stand out, to lead, and to inspire others. There will always be voices of fear around you. They will tell you to play it safe, to shrink back, to avoid risk. They will highlight every negative headline, every crisis, every reason to stop dreaming. But if you let those voices dominate, you will never move forward. Faith brings clarity because it allows you to silence the noise of fear and tune in to a deeper truth. It reminds you that you are not defined by circumstances, but by conviction. It reminds you that clarity is not found in the absence of storms, but in the presence of peace within. And that peace comes from faith. Look at your own life right now. Where is uncertainty shaking you? Where are you tempted to let fear make your decisions? Is it in your finances, your health, your relationships, your career, or your dreams? Wherever it is, recognize that fear will only multiply the uncertainty, while faith will bring clarity to it. Faith will not necessarily give you the full map, but it will give you the next step, and often that is all you need. Clarity is not about knowing the entire journey. It is about knowing the next move, taking it with confidence and trusting that the rest will unfold in time. Faith is contagious. When one person chooses clarity through faith instead of confusion through fear, others notice. Families feel it. Teams feel it. Communities feel it. Leaders who carry faith create clarity not only for themselves, but for everyone they influence. In times of uncertainty, people are drawn to those who radiate calm confidence and vision. That is why in 2025, if you want to make an impact, if you want to lead, if you want to succeed, you must cultivate faith because it is the only source of true clarity in an uncertain world. And the beauty of faith is that it is not reserved for a few. It is available to all. It is not about titles, status, or resources. It is about belief, conviction, and trust. The poorest person can have unshakable faith, and the richest person can lack it. The educated can have it, and the uneducated can have it. Faith is not external, it is internal. It is the most democratic power in the world because it is accessible to everyone who chooses it. And in 2025, those who choose faith will walk with clarity while others stumble in fear. So the challenge for all of us is simple but profound. Will we let fear dictate our lives in 2025, or will we let faith bring clarity? Will we allow uncertainty to paralyze us, or will we let it push us into deeper conviction and courage? The answer to those questions will determine not only our personal futures, but also the collective future of our families, businesses, and societies. Because clarity in times of uncertainty is not found in fear, and it never will be. It is only found in faith, the faith that the future holds promise, that our efforts have meaning, and that even in the storm, we are not alone. Fear is one of the most powerful forces in the human experience, and its influence is often underestimated. It whispers in the mind, convincing people that they are not ready, not worthy, not capable. It paralyzes by magnifying risks, exaggerating dangers, and minimizing potential. Fear convinces a person to wait until conditions are perfect, to avoid stepping into the unknown, to remain comfortable even when comfort is suffocating. In 2025, when the world is filled with rapid change, shifting economies, global uncertainties, and personal challenges, fear has a fertile environment to grow. Yet while fear holds many back, faith does the opposite. Faith takes the same uncertain circumstances and turns them into opportunities. Faith empowers people to act boldly, to move forward despite not knowing all the answers, to believe that progress is possible even when nothing is guaranteed. Where fear paralyzes, faith activates. Where fear freezes, faith ignites. And in a world as unpredictable as 2025, choosing between fear and faith will determine whether you merely survive or whether you truly thrive. Fear thrives in uncertainty. It feeds on doubt and grows in silence. The reason fear is so effective at paralyzing people is that it does not have to destroy them directly. It only has to convince them to stop moving. Think of all the dreams that never left someone's imagination because fear whispered, "You're not ready." Think of the businesses never started, the books never written, the risks never taken, the conversations never had. Fear paralyzes not by force, but by suggestion. It paints vivid pictures of failure, embarrassment, rejection, and loss until the individual convinces themselves that doing nothing is safer than trying. But the truth is, doing nothing is the most dangerous choice of all. The cost of fear is not only missed opportunities, but also missed growth, missed impact, and missed destiny. Fear convinces you to stand still, but standing still in a world that is moving guarantees that you fall behind. Faith, however, changes the equation. Faith does not remove uncertainty, but it transforms how we respond to it. Instead of being paralyzed by what could go wrong, faith empowers you to act on what could go right. Instead of being frozen by the unknown, faith allows you to trust that each step will reveal the next. Faith gives the courage to make decisions, to take risks, to move forward without needing to see the entire path. Faith empowers action by shifting the focus from fear of failure to trust in growth, from paralysis to progress. And when action is taken, even in small steps, momentum begins to build, and momentum itself creates clarity and confidence. Action fuels belief, and belief fuels more action. That cycle is what turns ordinary individuals into leaders, dreamers into doers, and uncertain times into seasons of growth. In 2025, so many people are stuck in cycles of fear. They are afraid of economic instability, afraid of losing jobs to technology, afraid of global conflicts, afraid of failing in relationships, afraid of rejection, afraid of not being enough. The list of fears grows longer every day. The news amplifies fear. Social media multiplies fear. Even well-meaning friends and family sometimes spread fear by cautioning against risks. But the truth is, fear only has as much power as you give it. The moment you decide to act despite fear, you take away its control. Faith is not the absence of fear, it is the decision that fear will not be the final voice. Faith says, yes, I feel fear, but I will move anyway. That decision to act in faith rather than freeze in fear is the defining difference between those who achieve and those who only dream. The paralysis of fear is subtle. Sometimes it looks like procrastination. Sometimes it looks like overthinking. Sometimes it looks like waiting for the right time. But all of these are masks for the same root problem, fear. People convince themselves they are being careful or wise, but often they are simply afraid. Faith unmasks those disguises and calls them what they are. Faith reminds us that progress is made not when conditions are perfect, but when courage is chosen. No one ever accomplished anything meaningful without risk, without uncertainty, without stepping into the unknown. If you wait until fear disappears before you act, you will never move. But if you move despite fear, you will discover strength you did not know you had. Action taken in faith weakens fear's grip because the very act of moving proves that fear was a liar. Fear creates stories in our minds, stories of failure, humiliation, disaster, and disappointment. These stories play like movies that never end, keeping us frozen in place. But faith creates new stories, stories of possibility, growth, victory, and transformation. The difference is not in the circumstances, but in the belief system. Two people can face the exact same uncertainty. One will be paralyzed by fear and do nothing, while the other will act in faith and move forward. The circumstances did not determine the outcome. The choice between fear and faith did. And when faith leads to action, even if the result is not immediate success, the person grows stronger, wiser, and braver. Failure becomes feedback instead of finality. Obstacles become lessons instead of dead ends. That is why faith empowers action. It reframes challenges as stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. Consider the great innovators, leaders, and builders of history. None of them waited for certainty before they acted. They all faced risks. They all felt fear, but they acted in faith that their vision was worth pursuing. Every invention, every breakthrough, every movement of change came from people who chose faith over fear. The same is true for you in 2025. Whatever dream you carry, whatever goal you hold, whatever vision you see, it will never be realized if fear keeps you frozen. The world does not reward hesitation, it rewards courage. The marketplace does not honor the most fearful, but the most faithful. Success does not come to those who wait for the perfect time, but to those who create the right time by acting in faith. Fear often disguises itself as logic. It says, be realistic, don't take risks, stay safe. But logic without faith becomes limitation. Faith does not ignore logic, it transcends it. Faith says, yes, I see the risks, but I also see the possibilities. Yes, I know the dangers, but I also know the opportunities. Yes, I hear the doubts, but I also believe in a greater purpose. Faith does not mean being reckless, it means being courageous. It means moving forward with wisdom, but refusing to be paralyzed by what-ifs. And when you choose faith, you discover that many of the fears you carried were illusions, barriers that only existed in your mind until you walked through them. The paralysis of fear drains energy, creativity, and motivation. People who live in fear are constantly tired because fear consumes mental and emotional energy. They replay worst-case scenarios in their minds, and that constant mental rehearsal leaves them exhausted. Faith, on the other hand, energizes. It fuels creativity, inspires vision, and awakens motivation. Faith gives you a reason to get up, to keep going, to try again. That energy is why people of faith often achieve more, not because they never face setbacks, but because they keep moving despite them. Faith empowers action because it sustains momentum, and momentum, once created, carries you further than you imagined. In 2025, we are reminded daily of everything we cannot control. The economy, politics, technology, global events, these are bigger than any one individual. Fear focuses on what is uncontrollable, leaving you overwhelmed. Faith shifts focus to what is within your control, your attitude, your decisions, your actions, and by acting on what you can control, you begin to influence outcomes in ways that fear could never allow. That is how faith empowers action. It redirects energy from worry into effort, from paralysis into progress. You may not control the storm, but you can control your sails. You may not control the economy, but you can control your work ethic, your creativity, your discipline, your resilience. Fear says, "What if I can't?" Faith says, "What if I can? And even if I fall, I will rise stronger." Fear is contagious, but so is faith. When one person chooses to act boldly in faith, it inspires others to do the same. Families are changed when one member steps out in courage. Teams are transformed when one leader models faith in the face of uncertainty. Communities are uplifted when individuals act with conviction instead of paralysis. That ripple effect multiplies far beyond what one person could achieve alone. Your act of faith may be the spark that empowers others to move beyond their fears. And in 2025, when fear is spreading rapidly through headlines, conversations, and uncertainties, the world desperately needs people who will break the cycle of paralysis by choosing action empowered by faith. The truth is, fear will never fully disappear. It will always try to creep back in. But faith is the ongoing decision to keep moving anyway. Every time you act in faith, you weaken fear's power. Every time you take a step despite trembling, you prove that courage is stronger than fear. And the more you act, the more your confidence grows. What once terrified you becomes normal. What once seemed impossible becomes possible. That transformation only happens when you choose faith and take action. So the question for each of us is clear. Will we let fear paralyze us in 2025, or will we let faith empower us into action? Will we freeze in uncertainty, or will we rise with courage? Will we live as prisoners of what ifs, or as pioneers of what can be? The choice is ours. Fear will always offer paralysis, but faith will always offer power. And when you choose faith, you do more than act. You inspire, you grow, you transform, you lead. Fear paralyzes, but faith empowers action. And action is what shapes destiny.